Good afternoon. In today's video, we'll be looking at scales of measurement in research. So what do we mean by measurement? Now, in this video, what we want to achieve basically is to ensure that you are able to define what scales of measurement are and their significance in research. You should be able to identify and differentiate between the 4 levels of measurement, discuss the implication of measurement skills on data analysis and interpretation. Then you should be able to apply everything you've learned in this video into real life situations. Yeah, so let's get into it. Now, what is measurement? Measurement is the process of assigning numbers or labels to variables according to specific rules to represent quantities, characteristics, or attributes in a meaningful way. Now, what are these rules? I said there are rules, assigning these numbers or labels to variables according to specific rules. What are the rules? Now, the rule says that the number or the label that we assign to this variable are consistent in a meaningful way. These rules are varies, like they change depending on the type of measurement scales that we use. And this is the number 1 rule. So when we are assigning numbers or labels, we have the basic number, which is from 0 to 9. So we want to assign these numbers either as labels or as numbers. Now, the rule says that when we are using these numbers as labels, that means they don't carry the real value of the number. That is, we cannot say 1 means 1 when we are using 1 as a form of label. But when we are using 1 as a real number, it means that 1 actually carries the value of 1. As I go on in this video, you will understand what I meant by this rule. So, measurement is also fundamental to data collection, statistical analysis, and interpretations of findings. Yeah. So let us look at the types of measurements. Then I'll be able to define the rules, and then you would have a full picture of what I meant by the rules. Now we have 4 primary scale of measurements, which is nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Outside these 4 measurements, we have other forms of measurements, but these are the primary scales of measurements. Now, what do we mean by ordinal scale? Now, for ordinal scale, the rule is that any number that we assign to any variable in nominal scales are only used to categorize our data without implying any order. Let me take that again. Any number that we assign to variable, if it is nominal scale, they are just used to identify and to categorize, just for identification. It doesn't mean one is higher than the other. It doesn't mean one is bigger than the other, or one is more than the other. The only thing that number does is just for identification. So for instance, I want to measure sex in a population. I've collected a data set of 100. I've collected 100 data sets. So I want to identify the sex. We have male and we have female. Let me just stay with that sex. We have male and female sex in that data set. I want to identify how many males do I have in this data set. How many female do I have? So if I use 1 for male and I use 2 for female, so everyone in that data set, everyone in that data set will be male. Every 2 in that data set will be female. It doesn't mean male are higher than female or female are higher than male. They are just used for identification. Now, for ordinal scales, the rule in ordinal scale is that the number that is used reflects a meaningful order of rank. Let me come again. In ordinal scales, any number that is attached to a variable is used for identification, also for categorization, and for ranking. For identification, categorization, and for ranking. So, for instance, in a race, you come first, you come second, you come third in a race. That means that anybody that takes number 1 actually is higher than who is labeled as number 2, and is actually higher than whoever is ranked number 3. I hope that makes a lot of meaning to us. So for the 3rd measurement scale, which is interval scale, the rule here states that the number that the variable is given indicates identification. We use it for identification, for categorization, for ranking, and that there are equal intervals between this number, but there are no true zeros. There are equal intervals between this number, but they are not true. The zeros are not true. An example, a very, very good example is temperature. Temperature is measured in Celsius or in Fahrenheit. So the difference, so let's say, for example, we are measuring between variable A and variable B. So we say variable A is 10 degrees Celsius or 20 degrees Celsius. Yeah. The difference between them is the same, which is 10, right? So the next one is 20 to 30. The next variable is taken from 20 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. So I say variable A, I label one A, 10 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius. Variable B, 20 degrees to 30 degrees Celsius. You can see that the interval between them is the same. So when we measure on interval scales, they have to be zero, but they have to be the same interval rather, but the 0 degree means nothing. It doesn't mean, if we say 0 to 10, for instance, right? It doesn't mean that 0 degree does not have some form of temperature, right? Yeah, that's what that means. Then for the last one, ratio scale. Whenever we use ratio scale, so we know that ratio scale will be used both for identification, for ranking, for categorization, for interval, to show that the intervals between them are the same. And lastly, there are true zero in there. If you see any zero when it is ratio scale, true zero means zero. So if we say something is zero, it's not a categorization. That means that thing is actually zero. It has no value. So things that can be measured on this scale is, let's say, for example, your weight, age, month, and all that. So that is that. Now, what are the importance of our measurement skills? They help us to choose the appropriate statistical tools that can be used for measuring data. Also, they ensure that there is accuracy and validity in our research finding. There is nobody who wants to carry out any research that doesn't want validity and accuracy. So our measurement skills make sure this is done. And also, it determines the level of precision and meaningful comparison when we're doing our data analysis. Also, it helps in generalization. So let's go over the 4 scale of measurement again. The first one is nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. And most importantly is that the rules have to be followed in measurement scale. So for the first one, nominal, we know that any number that is assigned to variable in nominal scale shows identification. For ordinal, it shows ranking. For interval, it shows like a form of categorization, and that the interval between variable A and variable B are the same, and 0 is not true. Any 0 in interval scales are not true. But in ratio, we know that it does both identification, ranking, shows interval, and any number used that has 0 takes on the true nature of 0. The numbers are real. And one example is that can be one example of variable that can be used in ratio measurement is age. For instance, if you say somebody is 0 years old, that means that person is not up to a year old. Do you understand? All right. Or maybe a new baby is a few weeks old and all that. So thank you for watching. In the next video, I would go in depth into defining these nominal scales and examples. We're going to look at various examples that can be measured across boards. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.